There is no denying Scotland's rugged beauty and mystical Celtic charm. Here are 4 unsolved mysteries from Scotland. Number 4. Annie Borgeson. On December the 4th of 2005, the body of Annie Borgeson, a 30-year-old Swedish woman, was discovered on the shore of Prestwick on the west coast of Scotland. Police quickly ruled it a suicide by drowning, but Annie's family wasn't convinced, and they uncovered some odd things when they looked into it. When Annie's body arrived back in Sweden, the undertakers there claimed she had several bruises that she seemed to have incurred while she was still alive. The autopsy in Scotland hadn't recorded these bruises. There were other marks on her body too, which officials report had concluded to be the result of collisions with debris in the sea. What most concerned the family though were the unanswered questions about Annie's last day. Annie lived in Edinburgh, but on December the 3rd she travelled 129 kilometres or 80 miles to Prestwick Airport for unknown reasons. She tried to withdraw cash using her credit card twice, first £100, then £50. Both times she didn't have enough funds in her account to complete the transaction. She proceeded to the airport, where her image was captured on video surveillance in the late afternoon. Timestamps from the airport security footage show that she moved the length of the terminal in 55 seconds. Independent investigators determined that this should take over a minute and a half at normal walking speed, and concluded that she must have been running. In total, she spent less than 5 minutes at the airport. According to a friend who had seen the footage, she appeared to be walking around looking annoyed and angry. She then began walking towards Prestwick itself. She wasn't familiar with the town, which was about a mile away from the airport. A witness later claimed to have seen a figure standing on the beach near the sea, but the figure was too far away to identify. When Annie's family began their investigation, they hit a wall of secrecy. Scottish authorities refused to release tissue samples that could help clarify the cause of death. When the family accessed Annie's email account, they found that all of her emails had been deleted. A friend named Maria Jansson discovered that Annie's phone company had failed to register any of the calls she had made to Annie during 2005, and the phone company refused to discuss it with her. Maria began to frequently receive silent phone calls. Family members had problems with their email accounts. Police claimed that there were no records of any calls to or from Annie during her last 3 days, even though several people remembered talking to her. It later came to light that Annie's hair had been cut after her death and thrown away. Annie's family continues to campaign for a full investigation. Her mother has met with the First Minister of Scotland, and a petition of 3,000 signatures was presented to the Scottish Parliament at the end of 2013. The family wants the police to investigate the possibility that Annie was killed during the missing 16 hours between the time she left the airport and when her body was found. Number 3. Mark Devlin. In the 1830s, a ruthless gang of criminals who called themselves the Black Band dominated the city of Dundee. Since Dundee only had 14 police officers, it wasn't difficult for the band to indulge in their penchant for robbery and rioting. The law got a break in 1835 when they caught a Black Band member named Mark Devlin breaking into a property and decided to make an example of him. Devlin was tried and sentenced to death by hanging. There was a bit of a problem though, because Dundee didn't have a hangman. Hanging had been used by the English to execute supporters of Scottish rebels, so no one in Dundee wished to be associated with it. They arranged for a hangman to travel from Edinburgh and made a makeshift platform on the side of a local guild hall. When the executioner didn't show, officials scrambled to find a replacement. A man identified as local showman James Livingstone volunteered, and Devlin was sent to meet his maker. Livingstone's reputation tumbled quickly as a result. which didn't make him too happy, because Livingstone had actually been 24 kilometers or 15 miles away in the neighboring town of Forfar at the time. He had reliable witnesses who saw him there, and he was eventually able to persuade everyone that he wasn't even present at Devlin's hanging. So who did hang Mark Devlin? Nearly 180 years later, we don't know, and we likely never will. Number 2. Gilmartin Hall. A small cottage in the Edinburgh suburb of Gilmartin hides the entrance to an unusual mystery. Buried in the sandstone underneath the town's homes are a series of tunnels known as Gilmartin Cove. They are obviously man-made. On top of the building-like layout, there are benches, seats, and stairs carved from the stone. Yet no one has any real idea who built them, when, or why. A popular explanation first recorded in 1769 is that the tunnel system was carved by a blacksmith named George Patterson between 1719 and 1724. The idea is that it was a home and workshop, but there are good reasons to doubt this. The area supposedly identified as a fireplace has no blackening around it, suggesting nothing has ever been burnt there. There exists what appeared to be a well, but it never went deep enough to hit water. Another possibility is that it was dug in the 17th century as a trial bore to search for coal. There are some tunnels heading north that are blocked but may once have reached the nearby Craigmillar Castle, suggesting that the cove could have been an escape tunnel. Some of the wilder suggestions include the idea that it was used as a hideaway by witches facing persecution. An archaeological investigation was carried out between 2000 and 2002 to determine once and for all what purpose the tunnel served. Sadly, its only conclusion was that the cove had been so widely used over the last few centuries that any chance of figuring out its origins are long gone. Number 1. David Stewart. David Stewart, Duke of Rothesay, was the unfortunate victim of a royal family feud. His father was Robert III, the King of Scots. Unfortunately, when Robert took the throne in 1390, he lacked the backing he needed to rule effectively. Support among the nobility was for Robert's younger brother, Robert Stewart, Duke of Albany. In 1399, David was appointed by his father to lieutenant of the kingdom, but his uncle wasn't too pleased about the young guy gaining so much power. In order to maintain his stranglehold on Scotland, the younger Robert had his nephew arrested in 1401. No one knows exactly what happened to David Stewart after that. It's believed that he may have been starved to death in the dungeons. One story also claims that he ate his own hands in a desperate bid to survive. The Duke of Albany claimed that David had simply died of dysentery. Either way, it's believed that he was buried in an unmarked grave in Lindores Abbey, and the current owners of the land are using underground imaging in an attempt to locate the body. If they do find it, they plan to use DNA to confirm it is the prince and set the record straight about how he died. So that's it for today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to tune in again tomorrow, as I'm going to start doing scary stories. So until tomorrow, goodbye.